Hello, everyone, and welcome to Breck to the Future. I'm Travis. So, a little bit about me and this project. This started, oh gosh, this started in my head a while ago. Ultimately, I'm here because I just kept looking around at all the talent, all the capital, all the technology in the world and realizing, how little of it was actually going to things that matter, or things that I think that matter, which certainly is going to be subjective. Um, my position in all this is we've spent years building things, applications, companies that want to optimize convenience. They want to optimize dopamine interaction. They want to optimize levels of engagement for stuff that I don't know its true benefit. I mean, again, this is all subjective, but ultimately, I think everything that we've focused on in the last 20 years, we'll look back and see that there was value. Absolutely, there was value in building these companies and, areas like Silicon Valley that brought a lot to the table. Um, but my take, while that is valuable, a lot of it I think was meaningless. And part of why I'm starting this is something that Chamath Palihapitiya said on Tucker Carlson's podcast. Essentially, we're going to look back at a lost decade in Silicon Valley. And that kind of really encapsulated what I've thought for a while. Again, we've spent years looking to optimize things that we may look back and question the actual contribution to society. But my take is, we really need to start looking on at these critical systems like housing and infrastructure, energy, food, education. I mean, all of these things that seem to be left behind. And maybe that's really just a perception that they've been left behind, just purely because they're not the sexy companies that get all the notoriety. I mean, some of them do, but not to the degree that, again, these companies that optimize convenience and dopamine hits and engagement did. And so, really, the point of this and, this first episode to kind of lay the groundwork for what I'm looking to do. Ultimately, this podcast is a way of me. I just want to ask some better questions, or what I think are better questions. I want to explore ideas and companies and concepts and things that I think could truly move us forward. I want to focus on those overlooked builders in emerging technologies that are looking for ways to really better, what we have presently and, you know, these bold solutions that not everybody wants to talk about. So, ultimately, I'm not an expert. I'm not here to preach. I'm really just here to learn, to share, and to shine a light on, things that I think that we've ignored too long. I'm taking away something I heard. I think Chris Williamson said in one of his podcasts. It was basically, I have the best job in the world because I get to invite really smart people on and talk to them and ask them questions. I don't know that I will get there, but I definitely just want to use this as a forum and a starting place to, there are some definite interests of mine, but again, the focus of this is going to be kind of holistically how could these companies benefit society as a whole, those that are kind of in the shadows and in the dark and not talked about enough. So let's, get into it. So to give you an idea of what to expect moving forward, I'm looking to, at the very least, do a weekly episode where I want to talk about some big questions that are out there, some of the meaningful innovation that we're seeing or that we could be seeing. Definitely want to talk about overlooked builders that are out there and some of the systems that I believe are worth fixing. And again, it's all about perspective, right? And the perspective that I want to propose here and move forward on in upcoming episodes is really to shine a spotlight on those people that are doing the real work, the real work rather, and to challenge, you know, what's gotten us to here to this, what's gotten us to this point thus far. Um, because again, I think there's value in things that have been built, but I suspect that there's some misguidedness in what we've been doing. And I want to talk about some of the things that I think truly benefit society as a whole. So it's going to be curiosity at first, and clarity over time. So with that, kind of just to get into it, kind of what's fallen out of focus, right? So again, I don't want to. I'll sit there and admit that there definitely is value in some of the things that have been built. And you have to learn, you have to iterate, but ultimately, I think Silicon Valley, venture capital, private equity, I think they really drifted into what could really be focused or targeted by that dopamine hit or that convenience factor over the last decade. Optimizing for engagement with people and how do we solve a problem that maybe wasn't really a problem, but it was created and then it was solved for. There wasn't really a focus on infrastructure. The idea that came to mind too with this was it's like all we hear about are the next latest and greatest food delivery apps or beer delivery apps or something that's convenience that, yeah, it provides value, but is it really that highest level of value? And again, uh, there's some good things with that, but I just think we can do better. I think we're at this turning point. So yeah, I think Silicon Valley and tech and venture culture, I think it's scaled very fast and they built systems that worked within each other, but they didn't really focus on those critical systems, right? That's why we see this housing and affordability. We see all of our infrastructure just seems to really be stagnant or stuck in the past. Areas that need help with food. I mean, think of all the subsidies for farmers. We have outdated education systems. And these are just really the tip of the iceberg, right? Again, and the whole point of this isn't intended to be like a complete criticism because a lot of value has been created. But again, I think it was misguided. And that's my opinion. And that's kind of what I'll look to kind of convey here. And certainly open to other, points and feedback. So, um, now, while all of this was being built, what really should have been built were, again, housing that was way more sustainable. I mean, we've seen in the last 5 years a crazy skyrocketing of prices in both price of homes as well as rent. And there are some areas that we'll talk about in later episodes that are taking this on. We definitely can see more scalable food production, right? We need some innovation there, which I think is happening. It just needs to be brought to light. There's no reason some of these groceries should cost as much as they do. Like we can do better. Our education system. I mean, I truly think I can't think of anybody that I know that thinks that our education system is where it needs to be. It was encouraging recently this week. We did see President Trump sign an executive mandate that AI is a part of the curriculum. We will definitely get into that in a future episode, but for now, just calling out that education needs an overhaul. And then energy. I mean, I don't think we can harp on this enough. Like, we need to be way more resilient as a country and even as a civilization in our energy needs. There are solutions out there that will address this. We just need to find them. So, with that in mind, again, just for the first episode, kind of wanted to highlight a couple of companies that have caught my eye that I would look to talk about in future episodes. The first and really, I think what kind of truly started this brainstorm session and why I'm here, talking to you and talking about this today is this company Icon. The CEO, Jason Ballard, they're based out of Texas. I think this is a phenomenal company. And so what they do essentially is they've built a 3D home printing company where they're utilizing concrete and proprietary technologies to build homes at a much quicker, faster pace. And it can be done around the clock. And what I like about this company, and I'm not going to dive too deep into this company or the others, but just kind of a couple of quick bullet points. What I like about this company is they've taken an approach that I think kind of mirrors Tesla. And what I mean by that is, Tesla really started with the Roadster, right? And let's get this premier product that everybody is excited about. Although I guess you could argue the Roadster still is yet to be released. But you start with this premier product that, yes, costs a lot, but you have to prove out the concept before you can get to economies of scale. And so they've built whole villages and subdivisions in Texas that are proving out their concept. Now they are on the pricier side in the beginning, but they need that buy-in. They need that excitement to then be able to get scale to other opportunities that truly can bring down the cost of housing. And to also circle back to the original comment I made about Icon, kind of the brainstorm that got me to this point, Jason Ballard put out a tweet or an X post that I responded to, essentially saying housing, food, and water are three of the main pillars of civilization. Housing seems to be the biggest drag at the moment, and then he asked the question, what are other pillars of civilization that are a drag at the moment? And I leveraged a lot of these new resources, did some deep research, put together my hypotheses, and went back to him with what I concluded. And just that interaction and that question got me to this point. Like, what else is out there, right? Like, we are at such a really cool inflection time in society that I think now is really when we can dig in and start to really take a look at true areas of improvement that are going to benefit everybody that aren't dopamine or engagement or things of that nature. So Icon definitely a company that I think is incredible and would love to talk with somebody at Icon and more about. Boxable is the next one. Again, housing, just one that's been top of mind for a while. So this is the other company that I think is really interesting. It's a modular housing company. It's focused on fast, affordable, stackable living units. They're able to be shipped compactly and they can be assembled within hours. They're definitely ideal for urban density, disaster relief, and other applications. I think with housing, we'll also find that a lot of it has to do with policy, which we could definitely dive into and speak to somebody about, hopefully at later episodes. But that's another company that I think is doing it right personally. These last two, they've gotten a bit of notoriety, but still not without merit, right? The first is Anduril, reimagining our defense technology. This company is founded by Palmer Luckey. Love everything that he stands for, following him very intently. I love his use of autonomy and AI and other modular hardware to help protect our national security. I think he has the right idea. I think he's asked the right questions, and I think he is forging ahead for a very important topic for the United States. So definitely impressed with that company and more to come, hopefully, with Anduril. And then last, this company, Ohalo. So Ohalo is a company that was originally founded by a scientist out in North Carolina. It was supported by the production company, rather, David Friedberg, who has since taken over as the CEO. And ultimately, what Ohalo is doing is they're an agriculture tech startup that's using AI and data to make crops way more resilient. If any of you have ever had a garden, you know that despite doing the same thing for each individual crop you're trying to plant, the results always vary. Well, the point of this company is their platform is targeting genetic improvements that are going to create a hardier, more high-yielding plant in a food-stressed environment. So imagine you could plant a potato or a tomato crop anywhere in the world and get ultimately the same yield, the same type of product. The difference is this isn't utilizing, as far as I understand, it's not utilizing sprays or chemicals or GMOs. It's leveraging a CRISPR-like technology within these plants to help unlock other genetic improvements that get us to this point. So definitely a company I think that will be one that we should focus on in coming days. Um, So as far as, builders doing it right, I mean, the other area that I really wanted to focus on, with this, and I think we'll find I don't know if I'm going to take a shotgun or a sniper approach to this. And what I mean by a shotgun or a sniper approach is right now it's going to be very shotgun based. And that the idea of a shotgun, unless you're using a slug to go deer hunting, the idea of a shotgun is it's scattered all over. And that's not without intent. The idea is there are other industries and interests that I have that would love to talk about and to dive into. So not very focused. We'll talk about some of those here in a second. A more sniper-based approach, in my mind, would be only talking about one industry or one type of company, which there's definitely going to be value for that. But again, I think really the point of this podcast and what I'm looking to do here is to highlight companies all over the place, ask questions, engage with anyone from the company as I'm able to just learn more about what they do, ask them questions to kind of highlight who they are and how they're benefiting society. So with that in mind, and with a very shotgun style approach to this podcast, um, you know, we can't have this conversation without bringing up the latest buzzwords that aren't going to be buzzwords in years, right? AI, robotics, automation, all of that. Now, how that's applied, it's like anything, right? It's a tool, it's a concept, but ultimately it's who's wielding it and how it's being wielded. And there's so many applications that we're going to be able to talk about, right? Like going back to Ohalo and agriculture, I mean, AI for what Ohalo is doing, but then robotics that are able to engage and enable precision farming, the opportunity to reduce labor costs, which, the other point of this podcast is to have honest conversations. The vast majority, you could argue, of our food in this country is produced, and the labor around it are probably with illegal immigrants that are not in this country, not to be in this country. There's obviously a lot that can be said about that, but the ability to use robotics and AI to reduce those labor costs and eliminate that as a potential work stream because they're able to do that job, that's something to talk about because that definitely has a very broad implication within the country. Um, Also being able to use AI and robotics to improve yields and yield forecasting. I mean, there's so many incredible opportunities here for agriculture. Other companies besides Ohalo, there's Blue River and Iron Ox that are looking into this. There's definitely, even the big names, CNHI and John Deere are definitely looking into this. So besides, agriculture, education, right? Education, I think, is the one thing that we can all agree on needs a massive overhaul. Things that are being looked into, adaptive learning platforms like Conmigo and Synthesis, just new ways of looking at how do we educate people. And they're using AI to personalize a curriculum based on the students and be way more engaging, as well as scaling teacher support. I didn't have it prepared for this one to call it out by name, but I just read about this platform. I think it's called Alpha or something, but it's based out of Austin. It's AI focused, and according to the couple of things that I've read that I'd love to get into at a future date, it is showing a drastic increase in test scores amongst everybody that's using it. So more to come on that front. Labor, again, kind of talked about it on the agriculture side, but being able to use robotics to eliminate, that physical strain, enhance worker capabilities, fill gaps in these aging workforce sectors. I think that's something we definitely want to get into. Logistics. I mean, you're seeing automation in warehouses, you're seeing last mile delivery. There's zipline drones in Texas now that are delivering things from automated fulfillment centers. It definitely boosts the resilience and the delivery consistency for companies. Manufacturing, robotic arms, 3D printing, which I have a 3D printer myself. It is incredible to use. Anything that's AI driven within manufacturing to help, focus on localized production and kind of reinforce and build up our very fragile supply chain that we have here in the United States. And last but certainly not least, any automation opportunities. I think that's definitely something that we're going to want to focus on. It's not just the tools, right? It's systems thinking. It's what are those routine tasks that can be addressed? I mean, I'm using it in my capacity as a project manager currently. I am an IT infrastructure project manager by trade, by career at the moment, and I have the green light to leverage any and all AI related tools that I'm trying to use to help enhance my abilities as a PM. So, definitely more that we want to see on that front. So, you know, kind of to summarize it, like what I'm looking at here, entertainment technology, it's making noise at the end of the day. But we're looking for what we'll call a more resilient technology approach. We want to enhance lives here. And that's ultimately what we're hoping to accomplish on this podcast here moving forward. So, kind of what I want to close with is just a little bit more about me and what I'm doing. And, part of this is self-serving. It's an opportunity for me to talk to people, to uh, meet hopefully with companies and individuals that are doing things that I think is very interesting and very intriguing. But why it really matters to me is I feel like we've spent so much time and I've spent so long watching. I just want to say it, the wrong things getting built. I mean, again, food delivery apps, I keep harping at. Do we really need as many that are out there? Do we really need more social media or other engagement tools that we're now seeing are really a detriment to society? I think that the wrong things have been built. Long form podcasts, I think, are incredible. I am fully behind that. That is what this will look to absolutely be. But I can't help also admit that while I can't, it's really hard for me to get behind like the streaming and the Twitch and all that kind of stuff. It's part of our ecosystem. It's the opposite, but the same as these long form podcasts. You're fully engaged in a lengthy period of time watching somebody do or say something. So there's the good and the bad, and that's what we'll want to highlight here, the good and the bad for all of these things. But again, ultimately, I think the wrong things have been getting built for too long, and we want to talk about, what I believe the right things are. And that doesn't mean that I'm right, right? Like these are just opinions. This is just kind of what I think are interesting companies and organizations and concepts that are out there and just want to talk about them, ask questions and highlight them. So, moving forward, what to expect, we're looking for weekly signal, not noise, a weekly podcast. We're hopefully looking at critical thinking, civilization-based thinking, not dopamine-driven hype that's out there. Hopefully you've enjoyed just a little bit of what we're potentially going to get into and talk about. I want to thank you for listening to the first episode. Please follow the show. Please share if any of this has resonated. If I can impact just one person, I think this is successful. If I can bring to light one idea, one concept, one company that flips a switch or gets you thinking, this will all have been worth it. So thank you again. Looking forward to connecting with you on the next episode.